Hey you guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on the overall series of A Court of Thorns and Roses. So, for those of you guys who don't know, I finished the series in early May. Not even early May, wow. I finished the series in early November. And let me just tell you, I've never been so satisfied with the series in so long that probably not since any of the Mortal Instruments and then the Infernal Devices haven't been satisfied with an ending since then, which it's been a while. Like the last book, City of Heavenly Fire, came out in 2014? And here we are in 2017, almost 2018, and I finally find the series that I'm like, yes about. But yeah, so without further ado, let's just get right into it. Alright, so I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler free as possible. It might be a little hard, so maybe I'll have something somewhere here on the screen where it kind of says like counting down to when a spoiler is going to pop up. Editing, Therese, do you want to show that somewhere? Maybe like covering my face or a little countdown somewhere here, maybe? But for those of you guys who don't know, I'll just kind of go through the series synopsis. And I'm going to try Actually, no, I'm not going to do a series synopsis. I'm going to do a synopsis of the first book. But yeah, because if I do a series synopsis of each book, you're going to get spoiled no matter what I do. So for those of you guys who don't know, the series A Court of Thorn and Roses is loosely based off of Sleeping Beauty. And the main character, Feyre, ends up killing a wolf, which turns out to be a fairy. And the fairy's boss, the fairy's High Lord, Tamlin, comes in and steals her away as kind of a debt to be repaid, because there's like a mystical, like, old wall that separates the fairies from the humans to keep them from, like, turning against each other and being really shitty towards each other and whatnot. But she is thrown into the fairy world and kind of has to deal with this new world she's living in, as well as missing her family and kind of seeing, like, what her family has been up to, and seeing how, like, this curse that has been placed on the spring court, and how she can go ahead and help fix that. But this is the first book. For those of you guys who don't know, loved this book. The second book in the series is A Court of Mist and Ruin, which takes place little shortly after the events in I want to say a couple weeks, maybe like a month or two after the first book. The last book of the series is A Court of Wings and Ruin, and this book has literally found a way to tear my heart open and then like step on it and then put it back and have me feeling okay about it, and I just don't know how to feel about it. Like, I just don't know how to feel about it. I'm still a wreck. Like, I'm trying to get over this book hangover, but literally every book I've been reading I'm like trudging through because I'm not over it. My first thought about the series was that I didn't really know a ton about it when I just kind of saw it, like, it was getting popular around. I saw a lot of people mentioning it in BookTube, and I was like, I don't know if I want to, because they just kind of told me it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but they didn't tell me it involved fairies, which is kind of one of my more favorite mythical creatures out there. But I didn't know, I just knew there was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so I was just kind of like, do I really want to read a Beauty and the Beast retelling where it doesn't look very interesting? But then I found out it had fairies with it, and I was like, probably should go pick it up. So as for favorite books out of the trilogy, I really can't choose. Like, the first book was just so beautifully written, and the second book just had so much stuff going on in it that she just, like, unveiled everything else. And then the third book opened up the entire world plus some, and I just really can't choose. But if I had to choose, I'd probably be a tie between the first and the second book. Not only because I think, not because they're just, the writing styles improved greatly, but also because it opened up a world and gave me more than just kind of, what the Spring Court sees, but also shows me how the rest of the Feylands, work and kind of, and shows me, a lot more characters who have so much depth to them and so much like like they're not realistic, they're fairies, but so much like you can tell their goals, and even from like the smallest character you see that they have a lot of personality. They weren't just thought up to be a stereotype. There's a lot of depth in them, and I just really enjoyed that because a lot of the times minor characters tend to be like a stereotype or just something really flat, but these characters were so well rounded, and even if you got to see them for a short amount of time, you knew exactly where they were all going. You knew they had goals, they had a life past being brought onto this specific page number, and it was just But onto things, onto the writing style. First person point of view is not my favorite, I'm not gonna lie. I just have a hard time getting into it, and sometimes it's just really hard for me to get lost. I don't write in first person, so that might be it. And like first person to me, even though it is set in first person, I always imagine the situation and the story is told in third. I can never imagine myself through the eyes of the narrator. But I didn't have that issue with this. I actually adored this book. I didn't think it would have worked as well if I don't think it would have worked as well as third person. I think first person was a perfect idea for this. And Sarah J. Maas is just a beautiful first person writer, and I'm going to be picking up the Throne of Glass series soon. So I don't know if that's written in first person. I'm assuming so, since it seems to be her writing style. But yeah. Aside from that, Farah just had such a beautiful way of seeing the world. You can see she's been through some shit, like a lot of stuff. And it's just like you can see that she understands why, like, she is a very self-sacrificial person. You see that with her family and how she basically gave up her childhood, her aspirations, and her dreams just to see them like grow and be prosperous as they can. And it was just so well to see her like develop throughout the series, because she goes from a very like, she is still sacrificial in a sense, but you can see that it just like her like idea of self-sacrifice now goes beyond her small little inner circle. First it goes from her family, then the fake courts, and then the entire world basically with this self-sacrifice, and it was just so perfect. And it's just like, if I could, she didn't have to sacrifice so much. She could have just walked away from everything and just lived her life the way she wanted to, but she did. And it's just so great to see her like change as a character. And I loved it so much. So, as for characters, I thought this story is filled with a ton of characters. Like, first you get like a small handful in the first book, and then it gradually gets a little bigger in the second book. And then the third book, it's like the character bomb was dropped, and it exploded, and you just have like 20 billion different characters to wrap your head around. Like, I probably couldn't tell you all the Fey Lords' names at this point. I'm just like, there's a Fey Lord for that, don't know his name. Which is, like, I know their personalities and I can picture them in their minds, but they just all came so suddenly that I'm like, All I know is Tarkin, and Tarkin is precious, and that one guy, Visininin, Visahanaha. Okay, now they make more sense. So there's a lot of Fey, there's not even a V name in here, God. But there's a lot of them, and now, like, looking at them, they all look familiar to me. But like I said, there's just a lot of characters in this, especially in this last book. Like, you can even the minor characters have a strong arc, like not a super strong arc, but strong enough to where like even if I don't remember their names, their personalities and their goals and who they are as a person made a lasting impression of me. And you can see like they wanted to save the world regardless. Regardless of them getting along, they just want to have like this life for themselves and just protect their people. And it's just a really great thing of seeing, especially since like a lot of them show up in this last book, and like specifically in one chapter, which is very different, because like sometimes like you want to build up your characters, but no, it's just kind of like bam, they're all here. But like there's just so many, and I couldn't even name them to you at all. And it was they're all just really great characters, and I definitely would like to see more of the different characters, like their daily lives, or maybe some more interactions, because I know we're getting a novella in 2018. I know we're getting one, so I would really like to see that. I feel like that would be a really good thing to show us, because as of right now we just get like the inner circle, and then anyone that Feyre gets a really like close relationship to, but nothing farther than that, if that makes sense, and I really want to see that. Alright, so as for things I wanted to see more, I kind of wanted to see more so of how the world works. We just know that most of the Fae High Lords are male, and I want to know why. Like, why are we sticking with a patriarchy? Why not a matriarchy? Like, I just wanted to see like why they were all male and like who came up with that, and why that was like why did they think that was a good idea, and why there wasn't ever a High Lady until Feyre came in. Oh. But yeah, this is what I wanted to see, like kind of why that was a thing. With Feyre's gifts, she gets later on, she ends up getting a really strong feel for them. Like by the end of the series, she has a really strong mastery over each gift, and that was a little upsetting to me. Not in a sense like I didn't want it to happen, but I wanted to see her struggle with it more. I wanted to have her see like, oh, she's proficient in one but not the other. She needs to work on this. She can't fly very well. Blah, 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 blah. And I just wanted to see her do more of that rather than kind of be able to get that really easy kind of grasp on the powers just because she has their power, so therefore she is able to get a grasp on it. Because I feel like the High Lords didn't have an initial easy grasp with their powers. Like you can see Tamlin all the time, like he has these minor shapeshift moments. But that's kind of what I wanted to see. I would really, 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 really like to see a bit more of a poly relationship between some of the characters, because it's been stated that not all of them are straight. Like some of them are bi, some of them are bisexual, but what's the word? But homo-romantic. One of them is bisexual, and I don't know what the rest of them, but I'm sure there's more. And I kind of wanted to see more of like that diversity, because they are fairies, so I don't see them holding on to societal standards in a sense. I kind of wanted to see them like, they're not going to hold on to societal standards, so I don't see why we can't have a poly relationship. And for those who know who I'm talking about, give this video a thumbs up, because I think that we shouldn't, like, the idea of a love triangle was presented in the third book for a different pairing, but I think considering how complex the situation has like evolved, I think a poly relationship might be an interesting way to take it. I don't know, just because it's weird and I don't want to give a ton of information onto it, but I think that's like it'd be an interesting thing to do, because like I said, they're fairies. They're not going to hold up to human societal standards. You see that a lot already when you start reading the books. So I would like their traditions and everything, so I'd really like to see kind of how that works in terms of the novellas that we'll get later on, or the novella. But I would really like to see that happen, especially since like I think this like relationship, like the relationship I'm thinking about, would just be a really interesting dynamic. So there's that. I kind of wanted to see more of Moore and her sexuality. You see it a little bit sprinkled in the second book, and then a little bit more in the third book, but it was just kind of like glazed over in a sense. Like she's not ready, which is completely okay. However, I think that I would really like to see, like in the coming novella, I would like to see her come to terms with her sexuality, because it just feels like the situation that happened, like I said, fairies I don't think they should be held to a societal norm, especially not with like how some of their practices are. They're definitely not humans, so I feel like the idea that Moore is like kind of scared to tell people, or tell the person she wants to tell that she is this sexuality, is a little interesting, and I'd like to see more of that explored, because we just got a little hint of it in the third book, and I feel like it could have been done in a better way without having been so easily glazed over, if that makes sense. I also wanted to see Tamlin's character a bit more. Like throughout the series, he gets just more and more complex, and you can see a really meaner streak to him once we get to the third book, and a really kind of darker streak. And I wanted to see a bit more of his like outlook, because as of right now, a lot of the fandom wants to demonize him, which I understand. Like, the stuff that he did is not necessarily okay. It wasn't okay. The stuff he did to Farah afterwards was not the best thing in the world. However, I think that he deserves some kind of explanation to it, because we never got to see that side. We just kind of got to see him become this possessive person, and I feel like with what had happened in the first book and what had transpired throughout the rest of the series, he deserves a bit more of an explanation rather than being demonized, especially kind of towards the end, where we get to see a bit of that redemption, where he was like, be happy, Farah. I think that he deserves more than just a single line. I think he deserves to be shown that kind of happiness, and I feel like rebuilding his relationship with everyone, and even like rebuilding his relationship with like Lucian and like everyone in his court would be a good way to tell us like he had his reasons for doing this. They're not the best reasons. I'm not going to stand by his reasons, but I feel like it's not fair for the fandom to demonize him so quickly, because all we got to see was Farah's side of it. We never got to see how Tamlin was hurting, or kind of the emotional stress that he had gone through in the first book that carried over to the second and then was turned upside down in the third. And I think that it would be really interesting to see that side of him. Another thing that kind of annoyed me, and this was after I had finished reading the book, like, I felt like sometimes the diversity was a little forced, because in the first two books, literally everyone, I believe, so everyone in the first few books, minus like the summer court, minus for those in the summer court, were seen, like, have been drawn and have been perceived as Caucasian. There is no person of color in here until we meet the High Lord of the Summer, which I think kind of follows some stereotypes, like, yes, High Lord of the Summer, they spend a lot of time in the sun, let's make them colored. More specifically from this image, dark mahogany. I'm not even gonna, dark mahogany. But so I feel like it was a little forced, especially towards the end when we got introduced to all these characters. Suddenly there was a bisexual one. There's more. I'm pretty sure the rest, like most of them, are not. Like some of the High Lords are not white. And I'm gonna say like maybe they're. I'm not even gonna assume, because like I can't. With the descriptions that are on the Wikipedia, I'm seeing a lot of like Tarkin with skin the color of mahogany, which is like what, it's like a reddy brown really, so I can't really tell what that means. Thesson has like brown skin. Helion is like dark skinned, which can be taken in a lot of ways and can be perfectly interpreted, so it's very vague. So I feel like the diversity aspect in terms of races, they're fairies, so there's not a race, but in terms of like, I'm gonna say races